Picture this: a humble blacksmith shop in rural Pennsylvania. The year is 1895. While industrial titans like Carnegie and Rockefeller are building steel empires in gleaming cities, a young master machinist named Abram Zimmerman is working in a converted horse barn, fixing broken farm equipment for local farmers. Fast forward 129 years, and that same tiny repair shop has transformed into one of the most powerful agricultural machinery empires on Earth. A global titan operating in over 160 countries, controlling the very bedrock of modern farming and generating billions in annual revenue. But here's the twist that nobody talks about. New Holland didn't achieve this dominance through revolutionary inventions alone. They built their empire through 47 strategic mergers and acquisitions, systematically absorbing competitors, swallowing rivals, and consolidating power in a way that raises one uncomfortable question. Did these mega mergers create innovation, or did they simply create a monopoly? Before we dive deeper into this controversial story, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button for Motor Chronicles. We're bringing you the untold stories behind the machines that built civilization, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. And here's something I'm genuinely curious about. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching this from. Are you in the heartland of American agriculture? Somewhere in Europe where these blue machines dominate the fields? Or maybe halfway across the world? I want to know where Motor Chronicles viewers are tuning in from, so let's hear it in the comments. Now, let's roll back to March 1895 in New Holland, Pennsylvania. This wasn't some bustling industrial center. This was rural America at its most unforgiving. Mud roads connecting scattered farms, winters so brutal they could kill livestock, and farmers who depended entirely on their equipment just to survive. Abram Zimmerman wasn't born into wealth or privilege. He was the third of 7 children in a deeply conservative Mennonite family, raised with values of hard work, simplicity, and service to community. But Zimmerman possessed something that separated him from everyone else in that small Pennsylvania town. He was a mechanical genius. While other young men his age were content following traditional farming paths, Zimmerman saw problems everywhere he looked, and more importantly, he saw solutions. He purchased a horse barn in New Holland and established what seemed like just another blacksmith shop. Farmers brought him their broken machinery, plows, engines, feed mills, and Zimmerman fixed them. But he didn't just repair equipment. He studied it, obsessed over it, and constantly asked himself how it could be improved. The business started modestly, with Zimmerman taking on the agency for the Auto Engine Company, selling stationary engines to local farmers. These engines were supposed to make farm life easier, powering everything from feed mills to wood saws. But there was one massive problem that drove farmers absolutely crazy. Pennsylvania winters were merciless, and these engines had a nasty habit of freezing solid when temperatures plummeted. Farmers would wake up on frigid mornings, desperate to process feed for their livestock, only to find their expensive engines completely useless, frozen, immobile, worthless chunks of metal. Most businessmen would have just shrugged and kept selling the defective engines. After all, Zimmerman was just a retailer. It wasn't technically his problem. But that's not how genius works. Customer complaints didn't annoy Zimmerman. They ignited something in him. He became obsessed with solving the freeze problem, devoting countless hours in that cold horse barn to developing his own design. And here's where the New Holland story truly begins. Zimmerman didn't just tweak an existing engine. He invented an entirely new freeze-proof stationary engine from scratch. When he finally unveiled his creation to the farming community, it was a bullseye, a smashing success that changed everything. Farmers who had struggled with unreliable equipment suddenly had a machine they could trust, even in the most brutal winter conditions. Word spread like wildfire through agricultural communities across Pennsylvania. Zimmerman's engines worked when others failed, and farmers were willing to pay good money for that reliability. By 1903, just 8 years after opening his horse barn repair shop, demand had exploded to the point where Zimmerman could no longer operate as a small-town blacksmith. He needed capital, infrastructure, and the ability to scale production. So he made a bold move. He incorporated the New Holland Machine Company. This wasn't just a name change. It was a transformation from a repair shop into a legitimate manufacturing operation. The company's first annual report in March 1904 revealed something remarkable: profits of $1,859.40 in their very first year of incorporation. In today's money, adjusted for inflation, we're talking about serious capital that proved Zimmermann had built something sustainable. Success bred expansion. The company didn't rest on the laurels of their freeze-proof engine. They expanded their product line to include feed mills designed by Zimmermann himself, machines that could process a wider variety of crops than competing models. They added rock crushers and wood saws powered by their own engines. By 1920, the New Holland Machine Company employed 180 people, a staggering number for a company that had started with just 2 men in a horse barn 25 years earlier. But here's the thing about empires: they're never built on smooth roads. Just when New Holland seemed unstoppable, everything changed overnight. October 1929. The stock market crashed, plunging America into the Great Depression. Agricultural equipment manufacturers were hit catastrophically hard. Farmers, already struggling with falling crop prices, couldn't afford to buy new machinery. Banks foreclosed on farms across the country. Demand for New Holland's products collapsed. The company that had grown so aggressively suddenly found itself fighting for survival. Many competing manufacturers went bankrupt and disappeared entirely during this period. New Holland survived, but barely, limping through the 1930s by cutting costs, reducing staff, and clinging desperately to their reputation for quality. It was a dark, uncertain time when the future of the company hung by a thread. You might be wondering how a company gets from that desperate situation to revolutionizing agriculture and building a global empire. The answer came from the most unlikely source imaginable: a local Lancaster County farmer named Edwin Nolt. Nolt wasn't a trained engineer or a corporate executive. He was just a farmer who was fed up with how impossibly difficult and labor-intensive hay harvesting was in the 1930s. Think about the reality of hay harvesting back then. Farmers had to cut the hay, let it dry in the field, rake it into piles, then manually load it onto wagons. Once they got it to the barn, they had to fork it into storage lofts. The entire process was backbreaking, painfully slow, and required armies of workers. A typical farm could process maybe 8 to 10 tons of hay per day, and that required 3 or 4 workers per field working from sunrise to sunset. This created a massive bottleneck on farms everywhere. Hay was absolutely critical feed for livestock, especially during brutal winters, but harvesting it consumed enormous amounts of time and labor that farmers simply didn't have. During busy harvest seasons, farmers couldn't find enough workers. They lost entire crops because they couldn't get the hay baled and stored before weather ruined it. Nolt saw this problem and decided to solve it with an invention that seemed impossible: a machine that could pick up hay directly from the field, compress it into compact bales, tie them automatically with twine, and drop them ready for storage, all in one continuous operation. In 1940, Nolt walked into the New Holland Machine Company with his prototype. Company executives immediately recognized they were looking at something revolutionary. They purchased Nolt's invention and invested heavily in developing it into the first commercially viable automatic self-tie baler. This single innovation transformed New Holland from a regional engine manufacturer into the undisputed leader in hay and forage technology. Farmers who had struggled with manual hay harvesting suddenly could process vastly more acreage with fewer workers. The automatic baler became New Holland's signature product, the machine that built their reputation across America and eventually around the world. But here's where the merger story truly begins. In 1947, just 7 years after the revolutionary baler launch, the Sperry Rand Corporation acquired New Holland. Now, pause for a moment and think about how strange this acquisition was. Sperry Rand wasn't a farm equipment company. They were a high-tech corporation with roots in marine navigation systems and gyroscopes, cutting-edge technology that had absolutely nothing to do with agriculture. Why would a company like that want a Pennsylvania farm equipment manufacturer? Because they saw what others missed. New Holland wasn't just another machinery company. They were innovators with a proven track record of solving impossible problems, from freeze-proof engines to automatic balers. Sperry Rand had the capital and resources to take New Holland global, and that's exactly what they planned to do. The acquisition marked the beginning of New Holland's transformation from a regional American company into an international agricultural powerhouse. But it also marked the beginning of something else. A growth strategy built not on organic innovation alone, but on systematic acquisition and consolidation. Over the next decades, New Holland would absorb company after company, brand after brand, competitor after competitor, in a relentless expansion that would eventually see them merge with Ford's tractor division, get purchased by Italian giant Fiat, and ultimately combine with Case Corporation to form CNH Global, one of the largest agricultural and construction equipment manufacturers on the planet. 47 acquisitions. 47 companies absorbed into the New Holland empire. Each merger brought new technology, new markets, and new power. So here's the question we're going to explore throughout this story. When you build an empire through 47 mergers, are you driving innovation forward? Or are you simply eliminating competition and consolidating market power? Did New Holland's aggressive acquisition strategy benefit farmers with better technology and more choices? Or did it create a monopolistic giant that controls too much of the agricultural equipment industry? The answer isn't as simple as you might think. What started in a humble horse barn in 1895 has become one of the most powerful and controversial success stories in industrial history. And we're just getting started. Let's go back to the beginning, to the man who started it all. Because you can't understand the New Holland Empire without understanding Abram Zimmerman, the master machinist whose obsession with perfection and problem-solving laid the foundation for everything that came after. Born in 1870 into a deeply conservative Mennonite family, Zimmerman grew up in a world where tradition ruled everything, where questioning the old ways was discouraged and where most young men followed predetermined paths into farming or simple trades. But Zimmerman was different. From his earliest childhood, he possessed an insatiable curiosity about how things worked. While other boys played with toys, Zimmerman disassembled clocks, studied their intricate mechanisms, and reassembled them, often improving them in the process. His family recognized his mechanical genius early, but in their traditional community, such talents were seen as useful only for practical purposes, not for grand ambitions. By his early 20s, Zimmerman had established himself as the most skilled machinist in Lancaster County. Farmers traveled from miles away seeking his expertise because when Zimmerman fixed something, it stayed fixed. He didn't just patch problems. He understood machinery at a fundamental level that others couldn't grasp. When he opened his modest repair shop in that converted horse barn in March 1895, most people assumed it would be just another blacksmith operation serving local needs. The building itself was nothing impressive. A simple wooden structure with dirt floors, basic tools, and barely enough space for 2 workers. But what happened inside that humble barn would eventually transform American agriculture forever. Zimmerman wasn't content being just a repairman. Every broken piece of equipment that came through his door became a learning opportunity, a puzzle to solve, a chance to imagine something better. The Otto Engine Company opportunity came along within his first year of operation. Otto engines were the most advanced stationary power sources available to farmers at the time, replacing unreliable steam engines and manual labor for critical farm operations. These engines powered feed mills that processed grain for livestock, with saws that prepared lumber for construction and heating, and pumps that brought water from wells. Farmers were desperate for reliable mechanical power, and Zimmerman recognized enormous potential in becoming an Otto engine dealer. He traveled to the company's headquarters, secured the agency agreement for his region, and returned to New Holland with high hopes. Initially, sales went well. Farmers appreciated having a local expert who could not only sell them engines but also service and maintain them. But then winter arrived, and everything fell apart. Pennsylvania winters in the late 1800s were brutal beyond modern comprehension. Temperatures plummeted well below 0 Fahrenheit for weeks at a time. Snow buried entire farms. Livestock huddled in barns, completely dependent on their farmers for survival, and those farmers depended entirely on their machinery. When a farmer's auto engine froze solid on a frigid January morning, it wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a potential catastrophe. Without power to run the feed mill, livestock couldn't be fed. Without power for the wood saw, there was no fuel for heating. Entire farm operations ground to a halt. And the complaints flooded into Zimmerman's shop. Angry farmers showed up at his door demanding refunds, screaming that the expensive engines he'd sold them were worthless garbage. Some threatened legal action. Others simply refused to pay their outstanding bills. For most dealers, this would have meant the end of the business. But Zimmerman didn't make excuses or pass the blame to the manufacturer. Instead, he became obsessed with the engineering problem. Night after night, he worked alone in his freezing barn, examining the auto engines by lamplight, studying exactly how and why they failed in extreme cold. The fundamental issue was water. The engines used water cooling systems with open-topped rectangular tanks. When temperatures dropped below freezing, the water froze and expanded with tremendous force. Since the water had nowhere to go in the rigid rectangular tanks, it cracked the engine castings. Catastrophic damage that rendered the engines completely useless. Other engineers had tried insulation and antifreeze additives, but nothing worked reliably. Zimmerman realized the solution required completely rethinking the engine's fundamental design. He spent months experimenting with different shapes and configurations. His breakthrough came when he designed a revolutionary open-topped trapezoidal water hopper that looked like an agricultural water trough. The genius of this design was elegant simplicity. When water froze, it could expand harmlessly upward and outward instead of being trapped in a rigid container. The expanding ice pushed up and out rather than cracking the casting. It sounds simple in hindsight, but it was genuinely revolutionary engineering that solved a problem the industry's best minds had failed to crack. Zimmerman didn't stop there. He completely redesigned the entire engine around this freeze-proof principle, creating something wholly original rather than just modifying someone else's design. When he finally tested his prototype during the brutal winter of 1897 to 1898, it performed flawlessly through temperatures that destroyed every auto engine in the region. Word spread through farming communities with the speed and intensity of a wildfire. Farmers who had cursed Zimmerman's name just months earlier came back apologizing and begging to purchase his new engine. The term freeze-proof became Zimmerman's trademark, a promise that New Holland engines would work when others failed, and that promise was backed by Zimmerman's absolute obsession with quality. He personally inspected every engine that left his shop, testing each component multiple times. If something didn't meet his impossibly high standards, he rejected it and started over, even if it meant losing money on the sale. This commitment to perfection became the foundational culture of New Holland Machine Company. Employees learned quickly that Zimmerman would accept nothing less than the best, and that dedication to quality would define the company's reputation for decades. By 1903, demand had grown so dramatically that Zimmerman faced a critical decision. He could remain a small-scale operation, maintaining complete personal control but limiting growth, or he could incorporate and scale up production to meet the exploding market demand. Zimmerman chose growth, but on his terms. He raised $50,000 by selling 500 shares to his neighbors, people he knew personally and who shared his values. He handpicked his board of directors: David Milton Wenger as treasurer, John Metzler, Eli M. Martin, and H.K. Landis from nearby Mount Joy. These weren't distant investors seeking quick profits. They were community members who understood Zimmerman's vision and would support his commitment to quality over quarterly earnings. The incorporation in April 1903 marked the official birth of New Holland Machine Company, though in Zimmerman's mind, it was simply formalizing what already existed. The company's growth during the next 15 years was nothing short of extraordinary. Production expanded far beyond just engines. Zimmerman designed innovative feed mills that could handle a wider variety of crops than competing models, making them more versatile for farmers with diverse operations. He added rock crushers for farmers who needed to clear fields of stones. His wood saws became the industry standard for reliability and safety. By 1907, New Holland had outgrown the original horse barn entirely, constructing a new 85 by 100-foot brick building. Though weak business conditions meant they couldn't occupy it until 1909. The factory operated with machine tools organized in rows, driven by a long overhead line shaft powered by a massive steam engine. Each piece of machinery was connected to the shaft by pulleys and belts, creating a symphony of mechanical precision that Zimmerman orchestrated personally. Zimmerman's innovations kept coming. In 1910, he designed a buck saw that could be sold separately or mounted on a combination truck with a New Holland gas engine. This mobile configuration allowed farmers to move their saw operation anywhere on the property, dramatically increasing efficiency. Previously, farmers had to transport all their wood to a fixed sawing location. Now they could bring the saw to the wood. It seems like a small improvement, but for farmers managing hundreds of acres, it saved countless hours of backbreaking labor. By 1920, New Holland Machine Company employed 180 people, an almost incomprehensible expansion from the two-man operation in a horse barn just 25 years earlier. The company had become Lancaster County's largest employer and one of Pennsylvania's most respected manufacturers. But Zimmerman's story doesn't have a fairy tale ending. The Great Depression hit New Holland with devastating force. Demand collapsed virtually overnight as farmers who had been steady customers suddenly couldn't afford to repair their existing equipment, let alone purchase new machines. Banks foreclosed on farms across Pennsylvania. Agricultural prices fell so low that many farmers couldn't cover their costs, even with the most efficient equipment. New Holland's workforce shrank from 180 employees to just 41 by 1940. The company that had once been the pride of Lancaster County was now fighting desperately for survival. Stockholder meetings in February 1939 failed twice because they couldn't even achieve quorum. Shareholders had given up hope and stopped participating. The company's leadership struggled to find any path forward. Zimmerman, now in his 70s, watched the empire he'd built crumbling around him. But the foundation he'd laid, the culture of innovation, the commitment to solving farmers' real problems, the obsession with quality, that foundation remained solid. And it would be that foundation that attracted a new group of investors in 1940 who saw potential where others saw only failure. Those new owners would make a decision that changed everything. They would bet the company's future on a revolutionary invention from a Lancaster County farmer named Edwin Nolt. An invention that would transform New Holland from a struggling engine manufacturer into the world leader in hay and forage technology. But we'll explore that incredible story in the next chapter. For now, remember this: every empire, no matter how massive, begins with one person who refuses to accept that problems are unsolvable. Abram Zimmerman was that person for New Holland, and his legacy of innovation would echo through the next 129 years. February 1939. The New Holland Machine Company called a stockholders' meeting. Nobody showed up. They called another meeting. Again, not enough people came to even achieve quorum. This wasn't just embarrassing, it was a death sentence. When your own stockholders have so little faith in the company that they won't even attend meetings, you know you're finished. Employment had collapsed from 180 workers to just 41. The factory that had once hummed with the sounds of production now sat mostly silent, with entire sections shut down and covered in dust. The company that Abe Zimmerman had built from a horse barn into Lancaster County's pride was now on life support, kept alive only by desperate hope and stubborn refusal to declare bankruptcy. But sometimes the darkest moments come right before the most dramatic reversals of fortune. And for New Holland, salvation was about to arrive from the most unexpected source. A quiet, introverted old order Mennonite farmer named Edwin Nolt, who had an invention that would change agriculture forever. To understand why Nolt's invention mattered so profoundly, you need to grasp just how brutally difficult hay harvesting was in the 1930s. Picture yourself as a farmer with 200 acres of hay fields. It's midsummer and you have a narrow window, maybe 7 to 10 days, to harvest your entire crop before weather ruins it. Rain could destroy weeks of work in hours. You start at sunrise with a team of horses pulling a sickle bar mower through the fields, cutting the hay and leaving it in windrows to dry. That's the easy part. Next comes the backbreaking labor. raking the dried hay into piles, manually loading those piles onto wagons with pitchforks, hauling the wagons to the barn, and then forking the loose hay up into the loft for storage. A strong worker could move maybe half a ton of hay per hour working at maximum effort. To harvest 200 acres, you needed multiple workers laboring from dawn until dark for weeks. The cost in time, labor, and physical exhaustion was staggering. Some farmers used stationary hay presses that compressed hay into large bales, but these machines were monumentally inefficient. You had to transport all the loose hay to wherever the press was located, feed it manually into the compression chamber, then tie each bale by hand with wire. The process was slow, required several workers, and the bales were so massive, often 300 pounds or more, that they were difficult to move and stack. Plus, these stationary presses couldn't operate in the field, which meant you were still doing all that manual loading and hauling. By the mid-1930s, some manufacturers had developed mobile field balers that could pick up hay directly from windrows, which was a significant improvement. Companies like International Harvester and Case produced pickup balers that could move through fields collecting hay. But here's the problem. These machines still required 3 people to operate. One person drove the tractor, and 2 more rode on seats attached to the bale chute, where they had the incredibly dusty, dangerous job of manually feeding and tying wire around each bale as it came out of the compression chamber. It was miserable, exhausting work. Edwin Nolte experienced this frustration firsthand. In the mid-1930s, Nolte made a business decision that seemed smart at the time. He sold his threshing machine and purchased a modern Allis-Chalmers all-crop combine. The combine harvested his grain much more efficiently than the old thresher, but it left all the straw scattered in windrows across his fields. Straw was valuable, farmers used it for livestock bedding, and they could sell bales to neighbors. Nolte hated seeing that value literally lying in his fields going to waste. He heard about a revolutionary new baler invented by a man named Innes from Davenport, Iowa, that supposedly could pick up straw automatically and tie bales with twine instead of wire. Excited by the possibility, Nolte traveled all the way to Iowa, paid good money for an Innes baler, and hauled it back to Pennsylvania. When he tried to use it in his fields, the machine was a complete disaster. It jammed constantly, the knotters failed repeatedly, and it couldn't produce consistently tight bales. Nolte had been swindled. Innes had never mentioned the machine's catastrophic design flaws. Most farmers would have cursed their bad luck and given up. But Nolte possessed the same trait that had defined Abe Zimmerman: an obsessive refusal to accept defeat. If nobody else could build a working automatic baler, then Nolte would build one himself. He had no formal engineering training. He wasn't a machinist or an inventor by trade. He was just a farmer with a problem and an absolute determination to solve it. Through the brutal winter of 1936 to 1937, Nolte worked in his barn using what historians would later call blacksmith engineering. Trial and error, salvaging parts from other machines, testing and failing and testing again. He kept the bale chamber from the useless Innes baler because its basic shape was sound. Then he scavenged bevel gears from a junked Fordson tractor, knotters from an old grain binder, and a blower from a blacksmith's forge to keep dust off the delicate knotting mechanism. The entire contraption rolled on pneumatic tires and wood spoke wheels salvaged from an old Willis Knight truck. It looked like a farmer's fever dream, a Frankenstein machine cobbled together from junkyard parts. But Nolte's genius wasn't in elegant design. It was in solving the fundamental problem that had defeated everyone else: automatic knotting under compression. Previous balers either tied bales loosely, making them difficult to handle and stack, or they required stopping the compression to manually tie each bale. Nolte developed a mechanism that could tie the bale automatically while the plunger was still compressing the hay, creating tight, uniform bales without stopping the machine. The innovation sounds simple, but the engineering required to make it work reliably was extraordinarily complex. The knotters had to operate at precisely the right moment in the compression cycle, the twine had to feed at exactly the right tension, and the cutting mechanism had to sever the twine cleanly without jamming. After countless failures and modifications, Nolte finally achieved what no one else had: a baler that could tie several hundred bales in a row without failing. It was the world's first commercially successful automatic field pickup, self-tying hay baler. Nolte called his creation the automaton and painted it green and silver. With help from Arthur Young, who owned a farm equipment dealership in Kinzers, Pennsylvania, Nolte began producing balers in Young's shop. They sold 5 balers in 1938. Word spread among farmers desperate for a solution to the hay harvesting nightmare, and orders jumped to 30 balers in 1939 and 90 in 1940. Each machine sold proved the concept. Farmers who purchased automatons discovered they could harvest hay with just 2 people, one driving the tractor and one operating the baler, and produce tight, consistently sized bales that were easy to stack and transport. The labor savings were revolutionary. Operations that had required 4 or 5 workers could now be done with 2. Harvest time dropped from weeks to days. The automaton wasn't just an improvement, it was a complete transformation of how hay farming worked. But Nolte and Young faced the same problem that had confronted Abe Zimmerman decades earlier. They had a revolutionary product but lacked the capital and manufacturing infrastructure to scale production. Orders were flooding in faster than they could build machines in Young's small shop. They needed serious manufacturing capacity and financial backing. Young approached Oliver Farm Equipment Company first, since he was an Oliver dealer and had an existing relationship. Oliver looked at the automaton, studied the market potential, and inexplicably declined the opportunity. It was one of the biggest strategic blunders in agricultural equipment history. Oliver turned down the chance to dominate the hay equipment market for the next half-century. With Oliver out of the picture, Nolte and Young turned to New Holland Machine Company, which was literally just down the road in Lancaster County. Remember, at this exact moment in June 1940, New Holland was barely alive. The company was being kept going by a small group of new investors who had purchased the failing business with borrowed money, $50,000 in first mortgage bonds that put them deeply in debt. They desperately needed a new product that could revive the company's fortunes. When Nolte walked into their offices with his automaton prototype, it was like watching destiny unfold. New Holland's new management team immediately recognized they were looking at salvation. They hired Nolte on the spot, purchased the rights to his baler design, and made a commitment to bet the entire company's future on baler production. Arthur Young stayed with Oliver, a decision he likely regretted for the rest of his life. New Holland dropped the automaton name, repainted the baler in their traditional red color scheme, and launched the New Holland automatic baler. The transformation was immediate and dramatic. To meet exploding demand, New Holland moved aggressively. By 1942, they had purchased 2 additional manufacturing plants, the former Hertzler and Zook plant in Belleville and the former Mountville Manufacturing Company plant. They moved hammermill and diesel engine production to Mountville, freeing up space at the main New Holland facility exclusively for baler production. Employment surged from 41 workers in 1940 to hundreds by 1943. The factory operated around the clock. The company that couldn't achieve stockholder meeting quorum in 1939 was now struggling to keep up with orders. Farmers across America and eventually around the world demanded New Holland balers. The company's reputation transformed from a dying relic to the undisputed leader in hay and forage technology. Edwin Nolte worked in New Holland's engineering department for the rest of his career, continuously refining and improving the baler design. He died in 1992 at age 83, having lived to see his invention transform global agriculture. Here's the remarkable irony. The design feature that made Nolte's baler revolutionary, tying the bale while it was still under compression, was discarded within a decade as knotting technology improved and could tie even faster. But that doesn't diminish Nolte's achievement. He created the template, proved the concept, and launched New Holland into a completely new era. The automatic self-tie baler became New Holland's signature product, the foundation of their global reputation, and the reason the company survived to build its empire through mergers and acquisitions. Without Nolte's invention arriving at precisely the moment when New Holland needed it most, there would be no empire to discuss. The company would have joined the dozens of other agricultural equipment manufacturers that disappeared during the Depression. Instead, New Holland was about to enter the big leagues, attracting the attention of corporate giants who saw enormous potential in a Pennsylvania company that had mastered the art of solving farmers' most difficult problems. 1947. The war was over. America was booming. Factories that had spent years churning out tanks and bombers were retooling for peacetime production, and corporations flush with wartime profits were hunting for acquisition targets. In boardrooms across New York and Philadelphia, executives pored over financial reports looking for undervalued companies with growth potential. And somewhere in those boardrooms, someone noticed a small Pennsylvania agricultural equipment manufacturer that had just pulled off a remarkable turnaround. New Holland Machine Company had gone from near bankruptcy in 1939 to explosive growth fueled by the revolutionary automatic baler. They employed hundreds of workers, operated multiple plants, and dominated the hay equipment market. But they lacked the capital and distribution network to truly scale globally. They were the perfect acquisition target. What nobody expected was which corporation would come calling. And it wasn't John Deere, International Harvester, or any other obvious agricultural equipment giant. It was Sperry Rand Corporation, a high-tech defense contractor whose roots lay in marine navigation systems and gyroscopes. The merger seemed bizarre, almost incomprehensible. What did a company that built guidance systems for warships have to do with hay balers? To understand this seemingly random acquisition, you need to know Sperry Rand's story. The company traced its lineage back to Elmer Ambrose Sperry, a brilliant inventor who had founded the Sperry Gyroscope Company in 1910. Sperry's revolutionary gyroscopic compasses and stabilizers became essential technology for naval vessels, allowing ships to maintain accurate navigation even in rough seas. During World War I and World War II, Sperry systems guided battleships, submarines, and bombers. The company made enormous profits from military contracts and earned a reputation as one of America's premier high-tech manufacturers. In 1955, Sperry merged with Remington Rand to form Sperry Rand Corporation, creating a diversified industrial giant with interests ranging from defense systems to early computers. The company was swimming in capital and aggressively seeking diversification opportunities. Defense contracts were lucrative but notoriously unstable, dependent on government budgets and geopolitical situations that could change overnight. Sperry Rand's leadership wanted stable civilian revenue streams to balance their military work. Agricultural equipment looked like the perfect hedge. Farming wasn't going anywhere. People needed to eat regardless of whether America was at war or peace. The post-war agricultural boom meant farmers were mechanizing rapidly, replacing manual labor with machines and dramatically increasing their productivity. Government programs supported agricultural development, providing loans and subsidies that helped farmers purchase equipment. From Sperry Rand's perspective, acquiring a successful agricultural equipment manufacturer gave them entry into a massive, stable market with long-term growth potential. New Holland, with its revolutionary baler and strong regional reputation, was the ideal target. In 1947, Sperry Rand made their offer, and New Holland stockholders accepted. The company that Abe Zimmerman had built from a horse barn was now owned by a corporate titan with resources that dwarfed anything New Holland could have achieved independently. The company was renamed Sperry New Holland, marking the beginning of a new era. The question everyone asked, farmers, dealers, and New Holland employees, was whether corporate ownership would destroy what made New Holland special. Would a defense contractor understand agriculture? Would they maintain New Holland's commitment to quality and innovation? Or would they strip the company for profits and let it decay? History is littered with examples of acquisitions that destroyed the acquired company's culture and capabilities. International Harvester, for example, had acquired numerous smaller firms over the decades and often struggled to integrate them successfully, leading to product quality issues and labor unrest. Ford's acquisition of various European brands had mixed results at best. There was legitimate fear that Sperry Rand would treat New Holland as just another division on a spreadsheet, managed by executives who had never set foot on a farm and didn't understand the agricultural equipment business. The early results, however, were remarkably positive. Sperry Rand proved to be surprisingly hands-off with day-to-day operations while providing exactly what New Holland needed most: capital for expansion and access to global distribution networks. The year 1947, the same year as the acquisition, saw New Holland introduce one of their most revolutionary products ever, the Haybine mower conditioner. This machine combined two previously separate operations, cutting hay and conditioning it for faster drying, into a single pass through the field. Before the haybine, farmers had to cut hay with a mower, let it lie in the field for days to dry, then rake it into windrows before baling. The haybine cut the hay and simultaneously crushed the stems, allowing moisture to escape much faster. This reduced drying time from several days to as little as 1 day, dramatically decreasing the risk of crop loss due to rain and allowing farmers to harvest higher quality hay with better nutrient retention. The haybine was such a successful design that it remained in production for over 70 years, finally being discontinued only in 2023. That's an almost unheard of production run in agricultural equipment. With Sperry Rand's financial backing, New Holland expanded aggressively throughout the 1950s and 60s. They opened new manufacturing facilities, expanded their dealer network across America, and began serious international expansion. In 1964, Sperry New Holland made a move that would prove crucial for their European presence. They acquired a major interest in Claes, a Belgian agricultural equipment manufacturer. Claes had been founded in 1906 by Leon Claes, a brilliant mechanic who started by building threshing machines in the town of Zedelgem, Belgium. By the 1960s, Claes had become one of Europe's largest combine harvester manufacturers, with particular strength in self-propelled combines. The Claes factory in Zedelgem gave Sperry New Holland a major manufacturing foothold in Europe, a facility that remains one of New Holland's most important production sites to this day. After the acquisition, Claes products were rebranded with the anglicized Claesen name and sold through New Holland's expanding dealer network. The Sperry years saw New Holland transform from a company known primarily for hay equipment into a full-line agricultural machinery manufacturer. In 1966, they introduced their first backhoe loader, entering the construction equipment market. In 1975, they unveiled the world's first twin-rotor combine harvester, a revolutionary design that used two parallel rotors instead of a single conventional cylinder. The twin-rotor design provided more thorough threshing, better grain separation, and higher capacity than conventional combines. More importantly, the technology was so successful that it's still used today. Every modern New Holland combine harvester uses some evolution of that original 1975 twin-rotor concept. These weren't minor, incremental improvements. These were industry-defining innovations that proved Sperry Rand's ownership hadn't stifled New Holland's innovative culture. If anything, it had accelerated it by providing resources that the independent company could never have afforded. But corporate ownership came with complications. Sperry Rand was undergoing constant restructuring and strategic shifts as it tried to compete in multiple industries simultaneously. The company invested heavily in computer technology through its Univac division, competing directly with IBM in the emerging mainframe market. They maintained their defense contracts but faced increasing competition. Their office equipment businesses struggled against more focused competitors. Throughout the 1970s and early 80s, Sperry Rand leadership constantly debated which divisions to prioritize, which to sell, and how to allocate limited capital among competing demands. Agricultural equipment was profitable and growing, but it wasn't Sperry Rand's core competency or strategic focus. There was always tension between New Holland's need for investment in research and development and Sperry Rand's desire to maximize short-term profits to fund other divisions. The tension came to a head in the mid-1980s. In September 1986, Burroughs Corporation launched a successful hostile takeover bid for Sperry Rand, creating a merged entity called Unisys that focused on computer systems and high-tech services. The acquisition cost Burroughs far more than anticipated. They had vastly overpaid in the competitive bidding war, and the new Unisys leadership desperately needed to recoup their investment by selling off non-core assets. Agricultural equipment manufacturing was about as non-core as you could get for a computer services company. New Holland, despite its success and profitability, was immediately put on the auction block. After 40 years under Sperry ownership, New Holland was about to change hands again. And the buyer would be a name that would shock the agricultural world. Ford Motor Company, the automotive giant founded by a man who famously hated farming. Looking back on the Sperry years, the verdict is surprisingly positive. Corporate ownership could have destroyed New Holland's culture and capabilities, but it didn't. Sperry provided capital, global distribution, and manufacturing expertise while largely respecting New Holland's autonomy in product development. The company introduced revolutionary products like the Haybine and the twin-rotor combine. They expanded from a regional American manufacturer to a global agricultural equipment powerhouse with significant European presence. Employment grew, product quality remained high, and New Holland's reputation strengthened. But the Sperry years also revealed a fundamental vulnerability. When you're owned by a diversified conglomerate focused on other industries, you're always one corporate restructuring away from being sold. New Holland's fate was no longer controlled by people who understood agriculture. It was controlled by executives in distant boardrooms making decisions based on strategic priorities that had nothing to do with farmers' needs. This vulnerability would define New Holland's future as they passed from owner to owner, each acquisition bringing new resources but also new uncertainties. The empire was growing, but it was growing through mergers and acquisitions, not organic expansion. And with each new owner came the question: would this one understand what makes New Holland special? Or would this be the acquisition that finally destroys what Zimmerman built in that horse barn? Here's one of history's greatest ironies. Henry Ford, the man who revolutionized American agriculture with affordable tractors, absolutely despised farming. He grew up on a farm near Dearborn, Michigan, and spent his childhood watching his father break his back doing brutal manual labor from sunrise to sunset, 7 days a week, with nothing to show for it but perpetual exhaustion and barely enough income to survive. When Henry's beloved mother, Mary Ford, died in 1876 when he was just 13 years old, something inside him broke permanently. He later wrote that her death was like watching the light go out of his world. The farm that had already felt like a prison now felt like a tomb. Young Henry became obsessed with a single goal: escape. He wanted to get as far away from farming as humanly possible and dedicate his life to machines. Specifically, to building machines that would free people from the kind of backbreaking labor that had destroyed his father and killed his mother. The irony, of course, is that Henry Ford would go on to transform agriculture more profoundly than almost anyone in history, despite, or perhaps because of, his hatred of traditional farming. Ford's journey from farm boy to industrial titan is legendary. He became an apprentice machinist in Detroit, worked for the Edison Illuminating Company, and obsessively experimented with internal combustion engines in his spare time. In 1896, he completed his first gasoline-powered automobile, the quadricycle, which he test drove through Detroit streets at 2 in the morning because he was too impatient to wait for daylight. In 1903, he founded Ford Motor Company, and in 1908, he introduced the Model T, the car that would put America on wheels. But Ford never forgot the brutal reality of farm life. Even as he was building his automotive empire, he was thinking about tractors. If he could mechanize farms the way he had mechanized transportation, he could free millions of people from the kind of suffering his family had endured. In 1917, Ford launched the Fordson tractor, and it changed everything. The Fordson was revolutionary not because it was the first tractor. Plenty of companies were building tractors by 1917, but because Ford applied his assembly line manufacturing techniques to make tractors affordable for average farmers. Previous tractors cost thousands of dollars, pricing them out of reach for most farmers. Ford sold the Fordson for $795, a price so low that competitors accused him of selling at a loss just to destroy their businesses. By the early 1920s, Ford was producing over 70% of all tractors in America. Fordson tractors replaced horses on millions of farms, dramatically increasing productivity and reducing the brutal physical labor that farming required. Ford had achieved his goal. He had helped mechanize agriculture and free farmers from backbreaking manual work. But Ford's tractor business was never particularly profitable, and by the late 1920s, competition from International Harvester, John Deere, and others had eroded Ford's market dominance. In 1928, Ford stopped producing tractors in America entirely, though production continued in Europe through Ford's British operations. Fast forward to the 1980s. Ford Motor Company was under new leadership and looking to rebuild its agricultural equipment business. which had languished for decades. They had continued producing tractors in limited numbers, primarily through their European operations, but they lacked a full line of agricultural equipment and didn't have the technological capabilities to compete effectively with dominant players like John Deere and International Harvester. Meanwhile, Sperry Rand's new owner, Unisys, was desperately trying to sell New Holland to recoup the massive costs of their acquisition. The timing was perfect for a merger that would shock the agricultural world. In 1986, Ford Motor Company purchased Sperry New Holland for approximately $660 million, creating Ford New Holland. The automotive giant that Henry Ford had built on his hatred of farming was now fully committed to the agricultural equipment business. Two legendary American brands, Ford and New Holland, were now one company, combining Ford's global reach and financial resources with New Holland's technological leadership in hay equipment and combines. The merger made strategic sense on paper, but merging two massive organizations with completely different cultures and product lines was extraordinarily complex. Ford brought its tractor operations, primarily based in Europe and focused on row crop tractors used for planting and cultivation. New Holland brought its dominance in hay and forage equipment, its revolutionary twin-rotor combines, and its strong dealer network across America. The challenge was integrating these complementary but distinct product lines and creating a unified brand identity. Would they sell Ford tractors and New Holland combines? Would they rebrand everything under one name? How would they rationalize manufacturing facilities spread across multiple continents? These weren't simple questions, and the answers would determine whether the merger created synergy or chaos. Ford New Holland's leadership made some bold strategic decisions. They kept both brand names initially, marketing products as Ford New Holland to leverage the brand recognition of both companies. They invested heavily in research and development, recognizing that to compete with John Deere's technological dominance, they needed to innovate aggressively. In 1988, just 2 years after the merger, Ford New Holland introduced the 46 Series four-wheel drive tractors, which featured advanced hydraulics and electronics that put them among the most sophisticated tractors available. They expanded the twin-rotor combine line, introducing larger models with more capacity and better grain handling capabilities. They developed new round balers that competed directly with John Deere's dominant hay equipment offerings. The investment was enormous. Hundreds of millions of dollars poured into new product development, factory upgrades, and dealer support. Ford was committed to making the agricultural equipment business succeed in a way they hadn't been since Henry Ford's original Fordson days. But operating an agricultural equipment business is vastly different from operating an automotive business, and Ford's leadership struggled with the agricultural market's unique challenges. Farm equipment sales are intensely cyclical, tied directly to commodity prices, weather patterns, and government agricultural policies. When corn and soybean prices are high and farmers are profitable, equipment sales boom. When commodity prices collapse, farmers stop buying entirely, and manufacturers get stuck with massive inventories and idle factories. The automotive industry has cyclicality too, but nothing like agriculture's boom and bust extremes. Ford's financial analysts, trained on automotive industry metrics, kept getting blindsided by agricultural market dynamics they didn't fully understand. Dealer relationships in agriculture are also fundamentally different from automotive dealerships. Farm equipment dealers expect massive inventory financing support, extensive parts availability for machines that might stay in service for 20 or 30 years, and technical support for incredibly complex machinery. Ford's automotive dealer network model didn't translate well. There was also a cultural clash between Ford's automotive engineers and New Holland's agricultural engineers. Automotive engineers optimize for mass production, cost reduction, and planned obsolescence. You want cars to be affordable and last about 10 to 15 years before customers replace them. Agricultural equipment engineers optimize for durability, repairability, and longevity. Farmers expect tractors and combines to last 30 or 40 years with proper maintenance. And they demand the ability to repair equipment themselves rather than being forced to visit dealers. These fundamentally different engineering philosophies created constant tension about design priorities and manufacturing processes. Ford's leadership pushed for more automotive-style standardization and cost reduction. New Holland's engineers resisted, arguing that agricultural equipment couldn't be built like cars without sacrificing the durability farmers demanded. Despite these challenges, Ford New Holland achieved significant successes during the late 1980s and early 1990s. Their market share grew, particularly in Europe where the Ford brand had strong recognition. They introduced genuinely innovative products that competed effectively with John Deere and Case IH. The twin-rotor combined technology proved so successful that competitors began developing their own rotary systems. The merger had created a legitimate full-line agricultural equipment manufacturer that could offer farmers everything from small utility tractors to massive combines. But profitability remained elusive. The agricultural equipment business requires enormous capital investment in manufacturing facilities, research and development, dealer networks, and inventory financing, while delivering relatively thin profit margins compared to automotive operations. Ford's leadership began questioning whether the strategic fit really made sense. Then came the announcement that would reshape New Holland's destiny once again. In December 1990, Ford announced they were selling 80% of Ford New Holland to Fiat, the Italian automotive and industrial giant. Ford would retain 20% ownership, but operational control would transfer to Fiat. The deal valued Ford New Holland at approximately $3 billion, and it marked the beginning of New Holland's transformation from an American company into a truly global agricultural equipment powerhouse. Fiat brought something Ford hadn't: genuine commitment to the agricultural equipment business as a core strategic priority. Fiat had been manufacturing tractors since 1918 and had built Fiat Trattori into one of Europe's largest tractor manufacturers, with particular strength in Southern Europe. More importantly, Fiat had the financial resources and the long-term vision to invest in agricultural equipment even during down cycles. They weren't treating it as a side business to be sold when things got tough. They saw it as a fundamental pillar of their industrial empire. The Ford era had been brief but transformative. In just 5 years, from 1986 to 1991, Ford New Holland had gone from a collection of separate businesses to an integrated full-line manufacturer competing at the highest level of the agricultural equipment industry. The merger had combined Ford's global presence and financial muscle with New Holland's technological innovation and market leadership in key product categories. But Ford had also demonstrated the fundamental problem with treating agricultural equipment as just another business unit in a diversified corporation. When your primary business is building cars and trucks, farm equipment becomes a distraction. When commodity prices crash and the agricultural market tanks, corporate leadership starts questioning why they're investing billions in a business that delivers lower returns than their core operations. New Holland needed an owner who understood that agricultural equipment wasn't just another product line. It was a way of life, a commitment to farmers, and a business that required patience through inevitable down cycles. Fiat was about to prove whether they could be that owner, or whether New Holland would just keep getting passed from one corporate parent to another in an endless cycle of mergers that never quite delivered the promised synergies. December 1990. The announcement sent shockwaves through the agricultural equipment industry. Fiat, the Italian automotive and industrial giant, was purchasing 80% of Ford New Holland for $3 billion. Ford would retain a 20% stake, but operational control would shift entirely to the Italians. American farmers and dealers reacted with a mixture of confusion and skepticism. Fiat, the company that made tiny cars and Ferraris? What did they know about building tractors and combines for American Midwest corn and soybean farms? The concerns were understandable but misplaced, because most Americans had no idea that Fiat had been deeply involved in agricultural equipment manufacturing for over 70 years. Fiat wasn't some automotive company dabbling in tractors as a side business. They had built over 1 million tractors since 1918 and had established themselves as one of Europe's dominant agricultural equipment manufacturers. This wasn't an inexperienced outsider buying into American agriculture. This was a serious industrial power making a calculated strategic move to create a global agricultural equipment empire. To understand Fiat's agricultural ambitions, you need to know their history. Fiat, Fabbrica Italiana Automobili Torino, or Italian Automobile Factory of Turin, was founded in 1899 by a group of Italian investors led by Giovanni Agnelli. The company initially focused on automobiles, but Agnelli recognized early that diversification was essential for long-term survival. During World War I, Fiat manufactured trucks, aircraft engines, and military equipment for the Italian armed forces. And this industrial diversification saved the company when automobile demand collapsed. In 1918, even before the war ended, Fiat launched the Model 702 tractor at their Turin manufacturing facility. This wasn't a half-hearted experiment. It was a full-scale production program aimed at modernizing Italian agriculture, which was still largely dependent on manual labor and animal power. The Model 702 was a massive success, winning international plowing contests and establishing Fiat's reputation for building reliable, powerful tractors suitable for European farming conditions. Over the following decades, Fiat Trattori, Fiat's tractor division, grew into one of Europe's largest agricultural equipment manufacturers. They specialized in tractors designed for European conditions. Smaller, more maneuverable machines suitable for the smaller fields and hilly terrain common in Italy, France, and southern Europe, as opposed to the massive row crop tractors favored in America's vast Midwest plains. By the 1980s, Fiat Trattori was selling tens of thousands of tractors annually across Europe, with particularly strong market positions in Italy, France, and Spain. But Fiat's leadership recognized they had a fundamental problem. They had limited presence in North America, the world's largest agricultural equipment market, and they lacked full-line capabilities in harvesting equipment like combines and balers. To truly compete globally against giants like John Deere and Case IH, Fiat needed to expand dramatically. The Ford New Holland opportunity was perfect timing. The acquisition created Geotech, a new entity that combined Fiat's tractor operations with Ford New Holland's full product line. The name change reflected the company's new global ambitions. This wasn't just New Holland anymore, and it wasn't just Fiat Trattori. This was a genuinely international agricultural equipment manufacturer with operations spanning 3 continents. The organizational structure was complex. Headquarters moved to Amsterdam, Netherlands, manufacturing facilities operated in Pennsylvania, Iowa, Belgium, and Italy, and management teams included Americans, Italians, Belgians, and executives from multiple other countries. Creating a unified corporate culture from this patchwork of different national traditions and business practices was extraordinarily challenging. Italian management styles tend toward centralized decision-making and strong hierarchical control. American agricultural equipment companies traditionally gave regional managers significant autonomy to respond to local market conditions. Belgian manufacturing traditions emphasized craft quality and precision engineering. Getting these different approaches to work together required diplomacy, patience, and occasional brute force. One of Fiat's first major strategic decisions was massive investment in product development. They recognized that New Holland had fallen behind competitors like John Deere in incorporating advanced electronics and precision agriculture technology into their equipment. Modern farming in the 1990s was rapidly becoming high-tech, with GPS guidance systems, yield monitoring, variable rate application of fertilizers and pesticides, and computerized machinery controls transforming how farmers operated. John Deere had aggressively pursued these technologies and had established technological leadership that threatened to leave New Holland behind. Fiat committed hundreds of millions of dollars to catch up and eventually surpass competitors. In 1993, just 2 years after the acquisition, New Holland introduced the revolutionary Genesis tractor featuring supersteer front-wheel drive and the innovative Sidewinder console that moved all tractor controls to an armrest beside the operator's seat, dramatically improving ergonomics and reducing operator fatigue during long days in the field. The Genesis represented exactly the kind of bold innovation that New Holland needed. Previous tractor designs placed controls all around the operator, gear shifts between the operator's legs, hydraulic levers on one side, power takeoff controls on the other side, throttle somewhere else entirely. Operators had to constantly twist and reach in uncomfortable positions. The Sidewinder console consolidated everything onto one intuitive armrest control panel that the operator could access without ever leaving the comfortable seated position. It sounds like a simple improvement, but it fundamentally changed tractor ergonomics and operator comfort. Farmers who spent 10 or 12 hours per day on their tractors during planting and harvesting seasons immediately recognized the value. The Genesis also featured supersteer front-wheel drive that provided a much tighter turning radius than conventional four-wheel drive tractors, allowing farmers to work more efficiently in smaller fields and making headland turns at field ends much faster. These innovations demonstrated that Fiat was serious about technological leadership, not just milking existing product lines for short-term profits. But product innovation alone wasn't enough. Fiat also had to address New Holland's manufacturing inefficiencies. The company operated too many factories producing overlapping product lines with insufficient economies of scale. The Pennsylvania facilities built hay equipment and smaller tractors. The Iowa plant produced combines. The Belgian Zettelgem facility manufactured European combines. The Italian plants built Fiat-branded tractors. Rationalizing this sprawling manufacturing network without destroying product quality or firing thousands of workers required surgical precision. Fiat's leadership made tough decisions. Some product lines were consolidated into single facilities. Others were eliminated entirely if they couldn't achieve profitability. The Mountville and Belleville, Pennsylvania plants were eventually closed, with production consolidated into the main New Holland facility. European tractor production was reorganized with clear delineation between models produced in Italy versus Belgium. These consolidations were painful. Entire communities that had depended on New Holland employment for generations saw factories close, but they were necessary to create a globally competitive cost structure. Fiat also brought something else crucial: patience with agricultural market cycles. Remember how Ford struggled with agriculture's boom and bust volatility. Fiat understood it intrinsically because they had lived through multiple agricultural cycles over 70-plus years of tractor manufacturing. When commodity prices crashed in the mid-1990s and North American equipment sales collapsed, Fiat didn't panic and try to sell New Holland. They maintained investment in research and development, supported dealers through the downturn, and positioned the company to capture market share when the inevitable recovery arrived. This long-term commitment contrasted sharply with Ford's increasingly short-term focus and Sperry Rand's complete lack of commitment. Farmers and dealers noticed the difference, and New Holland's reputation for standing behind its products and dealers strengthened considerably during the Fiat years. In 1995, New Holland introduced Precision Land Management, an integrated suite of technologies that brought GPS guidance, yield monitoring, and variable rate application capabilities to New Holland equipment. This was New Holland's answer to John Deere's precision agriculture leadership, and it proved that Fiat's investment in technology was paying off. Farmers could now use GPS to guide their tractors with centimeter-level accuracy, eliminating overlaps and gaps that wasted seed, fertilizer, and fuel. Yield monitors on combines measured exactly how much grain was being harvested from each part of the field, allowing farmers to identify which areas were most productive and adjust their management accordingly. Variable rate controllers allowed farmers to apply different amounts of fertilizer, pesticides, or seed in different parts of the field based on soil conditions and productivity potential. These technologies represented the future of farming, and New Holland was now competing effectively at the cutting edge. The Fiat years also saw New Holland expand into niche markets that had previously been ignored. In the 1980s, Fiat had acquired Bro, a French company that had pioneered grape harvesting equipment and dominated the vineyard machinery market. Bro had introduced their first self-propelled grape harvester in 1975, and the Model 1014 became the best-selling grape harvester in history with over 2,000 units sold in less than 4 years. By integrating Bro's specialized vineyard equipment into the New Holland product line, Fiat created unique capabilities that competitors couldn't match. Wine grape growers in California, France, Italy, Spain, and Chile could now get specialized harvesting equipment from the same company that supplied their tractors and hay equipment, simplifying dealer relationships and parts availability. It was exactly the kind of full-line capability that New Holland needed to differentiate itself from competitors. By the late 1990s, geotech under Fiat ownership had achieved something remarkable. They had transformed New Holland from a company struggling to compete into a genuinely global full-line agricultural equipment manufacturer with technological capabilities matching or exceeding competitors. Market share was growing, product quality had improved dramatically, dealer satisfaction was high, and the company was profitable even through difficult agricultural market conditions. Fiat had proven that they understood the agricultural equipment business at a fundamental level and were willing to make long-term commitments necessary for success. But Fiat's ambitions didn't stop with New Holland. They were about to make an even bolder move, one that would create one of the largest agricultural and construction equipment manufacturers in the world and raise serious questions about whether consolidation had gone too far. That move was the acquisition of Case Corporation, and it would create CNH Global, a company so massive that regulators around the world would scrutinize whether it represented dangerous monopolistic consolidation of the agricultural equipment industry. Let's step back and look at the bigger picture, because what we've been witnessing isn't just a company's growth story. It's one of the most aggressive acquisition strategies in industrial history. From 1895, when Abe Zimmerman opened his horse barn repair shop, to the present day, New Holland has been involved in 47 major mergers and acquisitions. 47 times, New Holland either absorbed another company or was itself absorbed by a larger corporate entity. That's not normal business growth. That's empire building through systematic consolidation, and it raises profound questions about what New Holland actually is. Is New Holland still the innovative company that Zimmerman built, or has it become a corporate Frankenstein, a collection of acquired brands stitched together under one name, with the original soul lost somewhere along the way? To answer that question, we need to examine the most significant acquisitions that transformed New Holland from a Pennsylvania machine shop into a global industrial titan. Let's start with the acquisitions that New Holland made, the companies they absorbed into their operations. In 1964, when New Holland was still owned by Sperry Rand, they made one of their most strategically important acquisitions, purchasing a major interest in Claes, the Belgian agricultural equipment manufacturer. Leon Claes had founded his company in 1906, building threshing machines in the small Belgian town of Zedelgem. By the 1960s, Claes had become one of Europe's premier combine harvester manufacturers, with particular expertise in self-propelled combines designed for European farming conditions. The Zedelgem factory gave Sperry New Holland a crucial manufacturing foothold in Europe at precisely the moment when European agriculture was mechanizing rapidly. The facility became, and remains to this day, one of New Holland's most important production sites, manufacturing combines that are sold across Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. The Claes acquisition wasn't just about adding production capacity. It brought European engineering expertise, established dealer networks across multiple countries, and deep knowledge of European agricultural practices that differed significantly from American farming. In the early 1980s, Fiat, before they acquired New Holland, made their own series of strategic acquisitions that would eventually become part of the New Holland Empire. In 1984, Fiat acquired Bro, a French company that had revolutionized vineyard mechanization. Bro was founded by Marcel Bro, a grape grower in France's Loire Valley who became frustrated with the impossibly labor-intensive process of harvesting wine grapes by hand. In 1975, Bro had introduced the Model 1020 grape harvester, the first truly successful self-propelled vineyard harvester that could pick grapes mechanically without damaging the vines or significantly reducing wine quality. For centuries, wine grapes had been hand-harvested because they were too delicate for mechanical harvesting. Bro's innovation changed winemaking economics forever, allowing vineyard owners to harvest acres per day instead of acres per week. When Fiat acquired Bro and later integrated it into New Holland after the Ford New Holland purchase, New Holland suddenly possessed specialized vineyard equipment capabilities that no other major agricultural equipment manufacturer could match. This gave New Holland a dominant position in premium wine-growing regions across California, France, Italy, Spain, Chile, Argentina, and Australia. In 2000, just 1 year after the creation of CNH Global through the merger with Case Corporation, CNH made another significant acquisition, FlexiCoil, a Canadian agricultural equipment manufacturer based in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. FlexiCoil specialized in air seeders and tillage equipment designed specifically for the massive grain farms of the Canadian prairies and American Great Plains. These farms operate on a scale that's difficult to comprehend, individual fields of 500 or 1,000 acres that need to be planted in narrow weather windows. FlexiCoil had developed massive air seeder systems that could plant 60 or even 90 feet of width in a single pass, dramatically increasing planting efficiency on these mega farms. Traditional planting equipment designed for smaller Midwest farms was completely inadequate for Canadian prairie conditions. By acquiring FlexiCoil, CNH gained the technology and manufacturing capabilities to compete effectively in the large-scale grain farming market that was increasingly important as farms consolidated and grew larger. The Saskatoon facility became CNH's center of excellence for air seeder technology, continuing to develop increasingly sophisticated planting systems. In 2013, CNH acquired Kongsskild Industries, a Danish agricultural equipment manufacturer that specialized in tillage equipment, grain handling systems, and forage equipment. Kongsskild had been founded in 1858, making it even older than New Holland, and had built a reputation for innovative tillage tools designed for the heavy clay soils common in Scandinavia and Northern Europe. The acquisition strengthened CNH's position in European tillage equipment and added grain handling and storage technology to the product portfolio. Each of these acquisitions followed a similar pattern. Identify a company with specialized technology or regional market strength that CNH lacks. Acquire the company, integrate their technology into the broader product line, and leverage CNH's global distribution network to sell those specialized products in new markets. It's a logical strategy that creates genuine synergies, at least in theory. But the acquisitions that had the most profound impact on New Holland weren't the companies New Holland bought. They were the times New Holland itself was acquired. We've already covered the major ones. Sperry Rand in 1947, Ford in 1986, Fiat in 1991. But the most transformative acquisition of all was the 1999 merger with Case Corporation that created CNH Global. To understand the magnitude of this merger, you need to understand Case's history. Jerome Increase Case founded the Racine Threshing Machine Works in Racine, Wisconsin in 1842, 53 years before Abe Zimmerman opened his horse barn. Case built threshing machines that separated grain from straw, revolutionizing grain harvesting across America. The company grew into one of the dominant agricultural equipment manufacturers, introducing steam-powered tractors, gasoline tractors, and eventually the revolutionary axial flow rotary combine in 1977 that competed directly with New Holland's twin-rotor design. In 1985, Case made its own transformational acquisition by purchasing the agricultural equipment division of International Harvester, creating Case IH. International Harvester had been one of agriculture's most legendary brands. Founded in 1902 through the merger of McCormick Harvesting Machine Company and Deering Harvester Company, International Harvester's Farmall tractor, introduced in 1923, had revolutionized American agriculture by offering a versatile tractor that could handle row crop cultivation, plowing, and stationary power applications. For decades, International Harvester had been one of the industry's giants, competing toe-to-toe with John Deere for market leadership. But the company made catastrophic strategic mistakes in the 1970s and early 80s, including a disastrous diversification into truck manufacturing and a crippling labor strike that lasted months. By 1985, International Harvester was bankrupt, and Case acquired the agricultural equipment division at fire sale prices. The Case IH merger created a company with complementary product lines and market strengths. Case's strength in construction equipment and combined harvesters combined with IH's legendary tractor heritage and strong dealer network across the Midwest. When Fiat merged New Holland with Case Corporation in November 1999, they were combining three of agricultural equipment's most storied brands, New Holland, Case, and International Harvester, under one corporate umbrella. The resulting company, CNH Global, instantly became the world's second-largest agricultural equipment manufacturer behind only John Deere, with approximately $30 billion in annual revenue and operations in over 160 countries. The merger brought together complementary strengths: New Holland's dominance in hay and forage equipment, Case IH's strength in large row crop tractors and combines, New Holland's European manufacturing base, and Case IH's strong North American dealer network. On paper, the synergies were enormous. The combined company could eliminate duplicate product development, consolidate manufacturing facilities, share technology across brands, and negotiate better prices from suppliers by purchasing components in higher volumes. But mergers this massive are extraordinarily difficult to execute successfully. You're not just combining two companies. You're trying to merge two completely different corporate cultures that have been competing fiercely against each other for decades. New Holland dealers and Case IH dealers had spent years telling farmers why their brand was superior to the competitor. New Holland engineers and Case IH engineers had fundamentally different design philosophies about everything from hydraulic systems to cab ergonomics. Manufacturing facilities used different processes, different quality control systems, different supplier networks. Creating a unified company from this patchwork required years of painful integration work. CNH made the strategic decision to maintain both the New Holland and Case IH brands as separate identities rather than consolidating everything under one name. Farmers are intensely brand loyal. Generations of families have bought the same brand of tractors and combines for 50 or even 100 years. Trying to force Case IH customers to switch to New Holland equipment or vice versa would have been commercial suicide. So CNH operated with a dual-brand strategy, keeping New Holland and Case IH as distinct brands with separate dealer networks and different product identities, while sharing underlying technology, manufacturing facilities, and corporate services behind the scenes. So here's the uncomfortable question. After 47 acquisitions, what exactly is New Holland? If you strip away all the acquired companies, Claes, Bro, Flexicoil, Kongsskild, and dozens of others, and if you remove the multiple ownership changes through Sperry Rand, Ford, Fiat, and CNH, what's left of the original company that Abe Zimmerman built? The answer is complex and perhaps unsatisfying. The New Holland brand name survives and remains valuable. The Pennsylvania manufacturing facility still operates, though it's been expanded and modernized beyond recognition. The culture of innovation that Zimmerman established, the commitment to solving farmers' real problems rather than just selling equipment, arguably still exists. But New Holland today is fundamentally different from the company Zimmerman founded. It's a global corporation with tens of thousands of employees, manufacturing facilities on 3 continents, and product lines spanning everything from small utility tractors to 400 horsepower combine harvesters. Whether that transformation represents success or loss depends entirely on your perspective and on one crucial question. Did all these mergers create innovation, or did they simply eliminate competition? November 12, 1999. The announcement came from Fiat headquarters in Turin, Italy. They were merging Geotech with Case Corporation to create CNH Global, one of the largest agricultural and construction equipment manufacturers in the world. The deal was structured as a 50-50 joint venture between Fiat and Case's owner, Tenneco. Combined annual revenue would exceed $30 billion. The new entity would operate in over 160 countries, employ approximately 55,000 people, and control massive market share in tractors, combines, balers, and construction equipment. Wall Street analysts praised the merger's strategic logic and potential synergies. Industry publications declared it a game-changing consolidation that would reshape competitive dynamics. But farmers, dealers, and industry insiders asked a more uncomfortable question. Had the agricultural equipment industry just created a monster? An entity so large that it represented dangerous monopolistic power? And more fundamentally, does consolidation of this magnitude drive innovation forward? Or does it simply eliminate competition and give corporations excessive control over the machinery that produces the world's food supply? To understand why this merger was so controversial, you need to grasp the sheer scale of what CNH Global represented. This wasn't just combining two companies. It was consolidating over 150 years of agricultural equipment history under one corporate umbrella. On the New Holland side, you had the legacy of Abe Zimmerman's innovative spirit, Sperry Rand's technological investments, Ford's global reach, and Fiat's long-term commitment to agricultural equipment. On the Case IH side, you had Jerome Increase Case's pioneering threshing machines, International Harvester's legendary Farmall tractors, Case's revolutionary axial flow combines, and decades of engineering excellence. Both companies had loyal dealer networks spanning multiple continents. Both had manufacturing facilities that represented billions in capital investment. Both had research and development programs working on the next generation of precision agriculture technology. Merging these empires created something unprecedented in scale and market power. The merger faced intense scrutiny from competition regulators around the world. The European Commission launched an extensive investigation to determine whether CNH Global would have excessive market power in key product categories. The United States Department of Justice conducted its own antitrust review. The concern was straightforward. If one company controls too much of a market, they can raise prices without fear of competition, reduce innovation spending because customers have limited alternatives, and dictate terms to both suppliers and customers. Agricultural equipment markets were already highly concentrated, with just 3 major full-line manufacturers, John Deere, CNH, and AGCO, controlling the vast majority of global sales in most product categories. The CNH merger made concentration even worse. In some specific market segments like large square balers or grape harvesters, CNH would control over 50% market share in certain regions. That's approaching monopoly territory. Regulators eventually approved the merger, but with significant conditions. CNH was required to divest certain product lines where market concentration would be too extreme. They had to license some technologies to competitors to maintain competitive dynamics. They were prohibited from certain bundling practices that could have leveraged their dominance in one product category to gain unfair advantages in others. These regulatory conditions demonstrated that even government officials who approved the merger recognized its potential anti-competitive dangers. The message was clear: we're allowing this merger, but we're watching very carefully to ensure you don't abuse your market power. Whether those regulatory safeguards would prove effective remained an open question that would only be answered over the following years as CNH Global began operating as a unified entity. The operational challenges of actually merging New Holland and Case IH were staggering. These weren't complementary companies that neatly fit together. They were direct competitors with overlapping product lines, competing dealer networks, and fundamentally different corporate cultures. Case IH dealers had spent decades convincing farmers that Case tractors were superior to New Holland tractors. New Holland dealers had made their livings arguing the exact opposite. Now they were supposed to be part of the same corporate family? The potential for dealer network chaos was enormous. CNH's solution was to maintain separate brand identities and largely separate dealer networks. New Holland remained New Holland, painted blue and marketed with its traditional brand values. Case IH remained red and maintained its distinct identity. In most markets, separate dealer networks continued selling their respective brands. But behind the scenes, CNH worked aggressively to share technology, consolidate manufacturing, and eliminate redundancies. The technology sharing created some fascinating outcomes. New Holland's twin-rotor combined technology, which had been revolutionary when introduced in 1975, was now being compared directly against Case IH's axial flow rotary combine, introduced in 1977. Both systems used rotating cylinders rather than conventional shaking straw walkers to separate grain from chaff. But the engineering implementations were different. New Holland used 2 parallel rotors. Case IH used a single larger rotor. Farmers and agricultural engineers had debated for decades which design was superior, with passionate advocates on both sides citing field performance data. Now both designs belonged to the same company. CNH engineers could objectively compare the technologies, identify the strengths and weaknesses of each approach, and develop next-generation combines that incorporated the best elements of both designs. In theory, this should have accelerated innovation. Whether it actually did became a matter of intense debate. Manufacturing consolidation followed quickly. CNH identified numerous facilities producing overlapping products and began the painful process of rationalization. Some plants were closed entirely, with production shifted to other facilities that had lower costs or better logistics. Other plants were given specialized roles, for example, focusing exclusively on large tractors while another facility concentrated on small utility tractors. The Zedelgem facility in Belgium became CNH's European Combined Manufacturing Center. The Grand Island, Nebraska plant focused on North American combines. The Saskatoon facility specialized in air seeders for large-scale grain farming. The Racine, Wisconsin plant that had been Case's headquarters since 1842 was substantially downsized. These consolidations made economic sense and improved operational efficiency, but they devastated communities that had depended on these facilities for generations of employment. Towns that had been built around Case or New Holland factories watched their economic base erode as production moved elsewhere. The research and development consolidation was equally dramatic. Before the merger, New Holland and Case IH each operated separate engineering teams working on similar problems: how to make tractors more fuel efficient, how to increase combined capacity, how to integrate GPS and precision agriculture technology. This duplication was enormously wasteful from a corporate efficiency perspective. CNH moved quickly to consolidate R&D operations, creating centers of excellence for specific technologies. Electronics and precision agriculture development concentrated in one location. Hydraulics engineering in another. Engine development in yet another. Engineers who had spent their careers at Case IH suddenly found themselves working alongside New Holland engineers they had considered competitors. The cultural integration was difficult, with different engineering philosophies and design traditions sometimes clashing. But the consolidation also created opportunities for genuine innovation as engineers from different backgrounds brought fresh perspectives to long-standing problems. By the early 2000s, CNH Global had achieved significant operational improvements. Manufacturing costs had decreased through facility consolidation and increased purchasing power with suppliers. Product development costs per unit decreased as new technologies were spread across both the New Holland and Case IH product lines instead of being duplicated. The company was consistently profitable even through agricultural market downturns. From a corporate financial perspective, the merger was succeeding exactly as Fiat and Tenneco had projected. But the more important question, whether the merger benefited farmers, was much more ambiguous. Equipment prices continued rising faster than inflation throughout the 2000s, even as CNH achieved cost savings through consolidation. Farmers complained that they had fewer options when choosing equipment. If they wanted a large tractor, their realistic choices were John Deere, CNH's brands, or AGCO. That's not much competition, and it gave manufacturers significant pricing power. There was also growing concern about parts availability and repairability. Modern agricultural equipment had become extraordinarily complex, with advanced electronics, computerized engine controls, GPS guidance systems, and diagnostic software that required specialized tools. Farmers who had traditionally performed their own maintenance and repairs found themselves increasingly dependent on dealers for even basic service work. When CNH consolidated parts distribution and service procedures, some farmers felt they were losing control over equipment they had purchased. The company argued that complexity was necessary for the precision agriculture capabilities farmers demanded. Critics argued that manufacturers were deliberately making equipment difficult to repair as a way to capture profitable service revenue and force farmers to purchase new equipment more frequently. The debate over right to repair became increasingly contentious as equipment became more computerized. In 2013, CNH Global underwent another transformation. It merged with Fiat Industrial and rebranded as CNH Industrial. The company was now officially headquartered in Amsterdam, Netherlands, though operational centers remained in Turin, Italy, and Racine, Wisconsin. CNH Industrial encompassed not just agricultural equipment under the New Holland and Case IH brands, but also construction equipment under the Case Construction and New Holland Construction brands, commercial vehicles under the Iveco brand, and industrial powertrains under the FPT Industrial brand. The company had become a massive industrial conglomerate generating over $30 billion annually across multiple business segments. New Holland Agriculture was now just one division of a much larger corporate empire. Some employees who remembered the company's origins in Abe Zimmerman's horse barn wondered whether New Holland had lost its soul. whether the innovative, farmer-focused culture that had defined the company for over a century had been sacrificed on the altar of corporate efficiency and shareholder returns. The company that had been founded to solve farmers' problems had become a global industrial titan focused on quarterly earnings reports and stock price performance. Whether that transformation represented progress or loss depended entirely on your perspective and on one fundamental question. When companies merge into entities this massive, does size create strength that drives innovation, or does it create monopolistic power that stifles competition and exploits customers? So here we are, 129 years after Abe Zimmerman opened his horse barn in New Holland, Pennsylvania. That modest repair shop has transformed into CNH Industrial, a global titan that controls approximately 15% of the worldwide agricultural equipment market and generates over $22 billion annually from agricultural equipment alone. In Europe, CNH brands, New Holland, Case IH, and Steyr, captured 21.5% market share in 2021, making CNH the continent's market leader. In North America, CNH holds over 20% market share in tractors and combines. The company operates manufacturing facilities on 4 continents, employs tens of thousands of workers, and sells equipment in over 160 countries. By any objective measure, New Holland's growth through 47 mergers and acquisitions has been spectacularly successful. But success and virtue aren't the same thing, and the uncomfortable question remains unanswered. Did this aggressive merger strategy create innovation that benefits farmers and society? Or did it simply eliminate competition and create monopolistic power that exploits customers? The answer is far more complicated than cheerleaders or critics want to admit. Let's start with the evidence that favors the innovation argument, because it's substantial and can't be dismissed. Modern New Holland equipment incorporates technologies that would have seemed like fiction to Abe Zimmerman. Consider the CR Revelation combine harvester introduced in 2020. This machine features IntelliSense automation that uses artificial intelligence and machine learning to automatically optimize combine settings based on crop conditions, eliminating the need for operators to constantly adjust dozens of parameters. The PLM intelligence system provides real-time feedback about grain quality, moisture levels, and harvest efficiency. Twin-rotor technology has been refined through 50 years of continuous development to the point where modern combines can harvest over 400 tons of grain per hour under optimal conditions. GPS guidance systems allow combines to operate with centimeter-level precision, reducing overlap and increasing efficiency. These aren't minor incremental improvements. They're revolutionary capabilities that dramatically increase agricultural productivity and reduce waste. It's difficult to argue that this level of innovation would have occurred if New Holland had remained a small independent company focused solely on hay balers. The precision agriculture revolution provides even stronger evidence for innovation benefits. New Holland's PLM Connect telematics system, introduced in the 2010s, allows farmers to monitor their entire equipment fleet in real time from smartphones or tablets. They can see exactly where each tractor and combine is operating, how much fuel they're consuming, what maintenance issues are developing, and how efficiently they're working. The FieldOps platform integrates data from equipment, weather stations, soil sensors, and satellite imagery to provide actionable insights about planting, fertilizing, and harvesting decisions. Variable rate technology allows farmers to apply different amounts of seed, fertilizer, and pesticides to different parts of fields based on soil conditions and yield potential, reducing input costs while increasing productivity and minimizing environmental impact. These digital agriculture capabilities required hundreds of millions of dollars in research and development investment. Small independent companies simply don't have the resources to develop these systems. The merger strategy that created CNH provided the capital and engineering talent necessary to compete in the high-tech precision agriculture race against John Deere and other well-funded competitors. The environmental technology investments also demonstrate genuine innovation benefits. CNH has developed alternative fuel systems including methane-powered tractors that can run on renewable biogas produced from farm waste, dramatically reducing carbon emissions. Their ECO Blue HIESCR emission control technology meets the strictest environmental regulations while maintaining engine performance. Research programs explore fully electric tractors and autonomous farming systems that could further reduce environmental impact. Critics of megacorporations often assume that large companies ignore environmental concerns in pursuit of profits, but the reality is more nuanced. Environmental regulations in Europe and North America are strict and getting stricter. Companies that don't invest in clean technology will lose market access. CNH's scale provides resources to develop environmental innovations that smaller companies can't afford, potentially benefiting society through reduced agricultural pollution. But now let's examine the evidence on the monopoly side of the argument, because it's equally compelling and deeply troubling. The agricultural equipment industry has consolidated to the point where just 3 companies, John Deere, CNH, and AGCO, control approximately 47.5% of the global market. In certain specific product categories, concentration is even higher. CNH controls over 50% of the large square baler market in North America. They dominate grape harvesting equipment globally through the Bro brand. In some European markets, the top 3 manufacturers control over 60% of tractor sales. This level of market concentration gives manufacturers enormous pricing power. When farmers need a new combine and their realistic choices are limited to 3 manufacturers, those manufacturers can charge premium prices without fear of competition. And that's exactly what has happened. Agricultural equipment prices have risen dramatically faster than general inflation over the past 2 decades. Consider this sobering statistic. In 1980, an average farmer could purchase a new 100-horsepower tractor for approximately $25,000, equivalent to about $85,000 in today's money adjusted for inflation. But a comparable 100-horsepower tractor from New Holland today costs approximately $140,000. 65% higher than inflation-adjusted historical prices. Large combines show even more extreme price inflation. A modern New Holland CR 8.90 combine with a 40-foot grain header retails for over $600,000. Adjusted for inflation, that's more than double what farmers paid for comparable combines in the 1980s. CNH and other manufacturers argue that modern equipment incorporates vastly more technology and capability, justifying higher prices. That argument has merit. Today's combines do far more than 1980s models. But it's also true that manufacturing efficiency has improved dramatically, and consolidation has reduced competitive pressure that would normally force prices down as production costs decrease. The right to repair controversy reveals another troubling aspect of market concentration. Modern agricultural equipment incorporates sophisticated computer systems that control everything from engine performance to hydraulic functions. Manufacturers like CNH encrypt the diagnostic software and restrict access to proprietary repair tools, making it extremely difficult or impossible for farmers to perform their own repairs or use independent repair shops. Farmers must bring equipment to authorized dealers who charge premium labor rates and use expensive OEM parts. CNH argues this is necessary because modern equipment is too complex for non-experts to repair safely, and unauthorized repairs could create safety hazards or void warranties. Farmers counter that they've been repairing their own equipment for generations and that manufacturers are deliberately restricting repair access to capture profitable service revenue. Multiple states have considered right-to-repair legislation that would force manufacturers to provide diagnostic tools and repair information to equipment owners. CNH and other manufacturers have fought these legislative efforts aggressively, arguing that forcing them to share proprietary software would compromise intellectual property and create liability issues. The parts pricing controversy adds another layer of concern. When CNH consolidated manufacturing and parts distribution after the Case IH merger, they gained enormous control over the replacement parts market. Farmers who need a specific hydraulic pump or electronic control module for their New Holland tractor often discover there's only one source, CNH's parts distribution system, and the parts carry substantial markups over what competitive pricing would suggest. Independent parts manufacturers exist, but CNH has used intellectual property claims and quality concerns to discourage farmers from using aftermarket parts. The company argues they're protecting farmers from inferior quality components that could cause equipment failures. Skeptics argue they're using market power to extract monopoly rents from captive customers who have no realistic alternatives. Both arguments have merit, making the situation morally ambiguous rather than clearly right or wrong. The dealer consolidation that followed CNH's creation demonstrates another consequence of industry concentration. In 1980, most rural communities had multiple competing agricultural equipment dealers, perhaps one selling John Deere, another selling International Harvester, a third selling New Holland, and smaller dealers representing other brands. This competition benefited farmers through competitive pricing, superior service, and dealers who worked hard to earn customer loyalty. Today, many rural areas have just 2 or 3 dealers representing the major manufacturers, and those dealers often operate as part of regional chains rather than independent family businesses. When CNH required dealers to make massive investments in parts inventory, service equipment, and facility upgrades to maintain their franchises, many smaller independent dealers couldn't afford the capital requirements and either sold to larger dealer groups or went out of business entirely. The result is less competition, less personalized service, and dealers with less incentive to negotiate prices aggressively because farmers have fewer alternatives. So which interpretation is correct, innovation or monopoly? The uncomfortable truth is that both are correct simultaneously. CNH's merger strategy did create genuine innovation through increased research and development resources, technology sharing across brands, and the ability to invest in expensive precision agriculture systems. Farmers today have access to equipment capabilities that wouldn't exist without the consolidation that created CNH. But the merger strategy also created dangerous market concentration that gives manufacturers excessive pricing power, allows them to restrict repair access, enables parts pricing that borders on exploitative, and reduces competition that would normally protect consumer interests. The innovation and the monopoly power aren't separate outcomes. They're two sides of the same consolidation strategy. We got revolutionary technology and market concentration together as a package deal, and we can't easily separate the benefits from the costs. Whether you view New Holland's legacy as primarily positive or negative depends entirely on which aspects you prioritize, the technological marvels or the market power concerns. November 2025. CNH Industrial reports its latest quarterly earnings, and the numbers tell a sobering story. Agricultural equipment sales down 21% year-over-year in the first quarter of 2025, following a 23% decline throughout 2024. North American tractor sales collapsed by 34% for high-horsepower models and 12% for smaller tractors. Combined sales crashed by 33%. Even in historically stable markets, demand evaporated as farmers faced crushing debt loads, high interest rates, and commodity prices that haven't kept pace with dramatically increased equipment costs. Dealer lots overflow with unsold inventory despite CNH deliberately cutting production to reduce the surplus. The agricultural equipment industry faces its worst downturn since the farm crisis of the 1980s, and New Holland, the company built through 129 years of relentless growth, now confronts existential questions about its future. Standing at the pinnacle of agricultural power with global market share approaching 20% in some markets, can New Holland maintain its empire, or will the merger strategy that built this titan finally reach its limits? CNH's leadership isn't sitting idle waiting for the downturn to pass. In May 2025, the company unveiled an ambitious strategic business plan extending through 2030 that represents the boldest bet on agricultural technology in the company's history. The plan commits to doubling the adoption rate of precision agriculture technology from 5% to 10% of CNH's customer base by 2030. That might sound like a modest target, just 10% adoption after 5 years of effort, but it represents thousands of farmers integrating CNH's FieldOps digital platform, PLM intelligence systems, and AI-driven automation into their operations. The investment required to achieve even this modest adoption rate is staggering. Hundreds of millions of dollars in software development, agronomic research, customer training, and dealer support systems. CNH is betting that the future of agricultural equipment manufacturing isn't primarily about building better mechanical systems. It's about providing farmers with digital tools that transform how they manage entire farming operations. The FieldOps platform represents CNH's vision of farming's digital future. Imagine a farmer sitting at breakfast checking a tablet that displays real-time data from every piece of equipment operating across thousands of acres. GPS tracking shows exactly where each tractor and combine is working. Fuel consumption monitors reveal which operators are driving efficiently and which need additional training. Yield maps display which fields produced the highest returns and which underperformed. Soil sensors report moisture levels and nutrient availability across different management zones. Weather forecasts integrated with field data suggest optimal timing for planting, spraying, and harvesting. Automated alerts notify farmers immediately when equipment develops maintenance issues before they cause catastrophic failures. This isn't fiction. It's technology available today, and CNH is pushing aggressively to make it standard practice rather than exotic luxury. The competitive battle isn't primarily about horsepower or hydraulic capacity anymore. It's about whose digital ecosystem provides farmers with better decision-making tools and whose platform becomes the industry standard that locks customers into a particular brand. But CNH faces formidable challenges in the digital agriculture race. John Deere has invested over $2 billion acquiring agricultural technology companies since 2017. Including the $600 million purchase of Blue River Technology and the $310 million acquisition of Bear Flag Robotics. John Deere's operations center platform claims over 600,000 connected machines, significantly more than CNH's digital ecosystem. AGCO has partnered with external technology providers to develop its Fuse Precision Agriculture platform. Even new entrants like Monarch Tractor are building fully electric, autonomous tractors targeting sustainability-conscious farmers and specialty crop growers. The agricultural equipment industry is experiencing more disruptive technological change than at any time since the mechanization revolution of the early 20th century, and the merger strategy that built CNH's empire doesn't necessarily provide advantages in software development and digital platform competition. New Holland built its reputation on mechanical engineering excellence, freeze-proof engines, automatic balers, twin-rotor combines. Can a company with that heritage successfully transform into a digital agriculture technology leader? The environmental sustainability challenge adds another layer of complexity. European regulations are driving aggressive timelines for emission reductions and eventually zero-emission agricultural equipment. The European Union's Green Deal commits to carbon neutrality by 2050, with agricultural machinery facing increasingly strict environmental standards along the way. CNH has responded with alternative fuel research programs including methane-powered tractors that can operate on renewable biogas produced from animal waste and crop residues. In September 2022, CNH demonstrated a methane-powered T6 tractor generating 180 horsepower while running on renewable biogas with near-zero carbon emissions. It's genuinely innovative technology that could transform how farmers power their equipment. But the infrastructure challenges are enormous. Biogas production requires significant capital investment in digester systems. Distribution networks don't exist for delivering compressed biomethane to farms. Competing technologies like battery electric tractors and hydrogen fuel cells offer different advantages and disadvantages. The uncertainty about which alternative fuel technology will dominate creates paralysis. Farmers hesitate to invest in equipment that might become technologically obsolete within a decade. The autonomous farming revolution represents perhaps the most disruptive force New Holland has ever faced. Companies like John Deere, CNH, and newcomers like Monarch are developing tractors that can operate without human drivers, using GPS guidance, machine vision systems, and artificial intelligence to navigate fields, detect obstacles, and perform agricultural tasks with minimal human oversight. In November 2022, New Holland introduced the T8 tractor with Raven autonomy technology, capable of operating as an autonomous grain cart during harvest operations. The tractor follows a combine harvester automatically, positions itself to receive grain, and transports it to waiting trucks without human control. It's revolutionary technology that addresses farming's most critical constraint, labor availability. But autonomous farming raises profound questions about New Holland's business model. If tractors can operate 24 hours per day without human operators, farmers need fewer machines to accomplish the same work. That reduces equipment sales, potentially catastrophically. CNH could find itself developing technology that destroys demand for its own products. The solution might be shifting from equipment sales to equipment-as-a-service business models where farmers pay for autonomous machine hours rather than purchasing equipment outright, but that would require completely reinventing how agricultural equipment companies generate revenue. The geopolitical risks compound all these technological challenges. Agricultural equipment manufacturing depends on global supply chains spanning dozens of countries. Electronics come from Asia. Steel comes from multiple suppliers worldwide. Engines incorporate components from European and American suppliers. When geopolitical tensions disrupt these supply chains, as happened during the COVID pandemic and continues with ongoing trade disputes, manufacturing becomes unpredictable and expensive. CNH operates facilities in North America, Europe, Asia, and South America, attempting to maintain regional manufacturing capabilities that reduce supply chain vulnerability. But the company's scale, which provided advantages during stable periods, becomes a liability during disruption. Coordinating production across multiple continents when supply chains are unreliable is extraordinarily complex. Smaller, more agile competitors might be able to adapt faster to rapidly changing conditions. The merger strategy that created CNH's empire assumed that scale provides competitive advantages. But that assumption breaks down if scale creates rigidity that prevents rapid adaptation to disruption. So where does New Holland go from here? The company stands at perhaps the most critical crossroads since Abe Zimmerman opened that horse barn in 1895. One path forward involves doubling down on the strategies that built the empire. Continue pursuing acquisitions to increase scale, invest heavily in technology development to maintain competitive parity with John Deere, leverage global manufacturing footprint to achieve cost advantages, and gradually transition from mechanical equipment to digital agriculture platforms. This path assumes the fundamental business model remains viable, that farmers will continue purchasing large, expensive equipment from established manufacturers even as technology and business models evolve. It's the conservative path, and it might work if agricultural markets recover and farmers return to purchasing equipment at historical rates. But it's also the path of greatest vulnerability if disruptive technologies or new competitors fundamentally change how agricultural equipment is manufactured, sold, and used. The alternative path is far more radical and risky. Fundamentally transform New Holland from an equipment manufacturer into an agricultural technology and services company. Instead of selling tractors, sell autonomous farming services. Instead of manufacturing combines, provide harvesting as a service where farmers pay per acre harvested rather than purchasing machines. Develop software platforms that become indispensable tools farmers subscribe to annually. This transformation would be extraordinarily difficult and might fail catastrophically. CNH's core competencies are mechanical engineering and global manufacturing, precisely the capabilities that become less relevant in a digital, service-based business model. The company would be competing against technology startups and software companies that have completely different cultures and capabilities. But incremental evolution might not be sufficient if the agricultural equipment industry is experiencing genuinely disruptive technological change rather than just continuous improvement. Sometimes the greatest risk is refusing to take risks. Here's what we know for certain. New Holland will not exist in 2050 the way it exists today. The question isn't whether the company will change. It's whether the change will be managed proactively or forced by competitors and technologies that make CNH's current business model obsolete. 129 years ago, Abe Zimmerman saw farmers struggling with frozen engines and decided to solve that problem. His innovative spirit built a company that survived the Great Depression, multiple ownership changes, 47 mergers and acquisitions, and technological revolutions that transformed agriculture beyond recognition. That spirit of innovation, the commitment to solving farmers' real problems rather than just selling equipment, is New Holland's most valuable asset. Whether that spirit survives the transition from mechanical engineering to digital agriculture will determine if New Holland thrives for another 129 years or becomes a cautionary tale about empires that grew too large, moved too slowly, and failed to adapt when everything changed. If you've made it this far in our story, thank you for joining us on this journey through 129 years of innovation, controversy, and relentless growth. The New Holland story isn't finished. It's just entering its most challenging and potentially most exciting chapter. If you found this story compelling, do me a favor and subscribe to Motor Chronicles. We're bringing you the untold stories behind the machines that built civilization, and there's so much more to explore. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and never accept that the way things are is the way they must remain.